So the idea behind this program was to bring students in, put them in a team setting, and then let them work on them, even as undergrads, let them work on some of those issues that are serving as barriers to deployment of our industry. So we wanted them to gain experience with our industry collaborators. We wanted them to study together and solve some of the technical challenges, really in an undergraduate research setting. And then also we wanted them to work collaboratively to help develop strategies on how you would actually deploy biofuel production operations, and hopefully even at the community level. Our thought was at some point put them in a team that could go into a community and work and say, if you want to build a biofuel plant in this community, what are the issues surrounding that? What are the things that the community will have to deal with? And what are the things that company will have to deal with to get there? So if you hear some background noise, there's construction going on outside our window, so hopefully it won't be too bad this morning. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a sense of our vision. Again, we're looking at multidisciplinary student activities. As much as we could, try to put them into teams, emphasize experiential learning, but have them focused on issues that affect or barriers to deployment of biofuels here in the Southeast. I guess I'll pause real quick. Lori and I talked this morning, and I think our game plan was, if people have questions, Lori was going to try to watch the chat session, the little chat window there. So if people have questions as we go, please feel free to type in questions over there, and Lori's going to try to help us keep up with those, and we'll answer those at the end. Okay. So second part, really talk about the operations of our fellowship program this year, and I guess you could say it's been a pilot program this year, but so the next several minutes we'll really talk about how we have functioned this summer and fall. So you can see the seed program, we broke it into two parts, both a summer term component as well as a fall term component. In the summer, started with some initial educational activities for the students on biomass and biofuel issues. So those were classroom exercises, at least early on, to get students up to speed on issues related to biomass production, processing, harvesting, and then biofuel conversion. That was followed by a short-term internship with our industry collaborator, Rentec, for a couple of weeks, and then that was followed. The students came back here to Auburn and completed individual work on some of the technical issues that really came out of their experience at Rentec. And then there were some selected, what we refer to as enriching experiences throughout the summer that the students participated in. And in the fall, we're trying to hang on to the students and have them work together in a team setting again. But instead of working on individual little research projects, have them work together as a team to solve essentially a problem of if Rentec, in our case, wants to build a plant in a particular community, let them work on some of the issues surrounding that, and let them experience what will you go through if you're trying to deploy a plant in a given community. So that's our both summer and fall kind of overview. So to kind of go back, again, this was a pilot program this summer. We really viewed it as a pilot program just to get us started. So Sushil Adhikari really has carried the water on this summer. So Sushil contacted the IBSS investigators and encouraged them to nominate students for the fellowship. And really, when we say contacted investigators, we really only were looking here in Auburn, Auburn University, Tuskegee University, and Alabama A&M. The idea was to at least start small. Let's walk before we run, and try to work with students that are relatively close to us this first summer. And so we put out a call for applications from students here at Auburn, at Tuskegee, and Alabama A&M. And the fellowship was really set up for a summer term fellowship and then a fall term fellowship. And you can see the economic incentives there. We paid the students $5,000 for their summer term fellowship, and then paid an additional amount to help cover their living expenses while they were here in Auburn. And then the fall term fellowship will work out to no more than $3,000 per student. And actually, Sushil, the way we're doing that, I guess, within the university system here, we have to pay them on an hourly basis. So they turn in a timesheet, and we work out that $5,000 over the summer. We figure out what the hourly rate should be, and then we pay them by the hour. They turn in a timesheet, but essentially they're turning in a timesheet for 40 hours a week, right? And then the living expense was added on to that in the same way. Anyway, that's kind of how their stipend or their fellowship economically worked. The living expense part of that, I'll probably repeat this in a minute, but the students ended up, all the students lived here on campus. Some of the students were from outside, and so Sushil was able to work out housing arrangements not on the university campus, but essentially right adjacent to campus. There's a private, essentially a private dormitory that students were able to live at, and that provided some of their meals as well as lodging for them, and so that worked out really well. Really extremely economical rate for the students. They ended up paying $85. It was $85 a week for essentially room and board, which is I don't have any idea how they did that, but anyway, they did it. And the meals the students said were pretty decent meals, so pretty good deal for them. So the application process, the students were asked to submit a 2-page application, a 1-page resume, and then recommendation letters from, I guess they were all from faculty pretty much, weren't they, that they had. And then, you know, the application had things about their GPA, their class standing, what kind of honors and awards, and then their kind of long-term goals and how the fellowship would relate to them fulfilling their long-term career goals. So the applications were reviewed here by the group here at Auburn, and we had 12 applicants from both Auburn and Tuskegee. We didn't have any applicants from Alabama A&M, but we had applicants both from Auburn, Tuskegee University. The students were ranked based on their GPA, and then out of that group, we selected 5 students for this initial 2012 group. And so you can see there's a pretty nice group photo there of the students in our group. The students, I'll go through details on each one here in a minute. But so the students were brought here to campus. Again, we helped them work out living arrangements. Some of them already had their own apartments. Some of the Auburn students had their own apartment, but not necessarily all of them. And so there were some that lived in a private commercial dormitory that was right next to campus that provided both room and board for them, like we said a minute ago. But we essentially we had required them to stay here on campus to just as part of the program. So after they got here, Dr. Adhikari and others really worked with them and provided some initial lectures just to get them up to speed on biomass production, processing, and biofuel conversion. So there were a few days early on there to kind of get them up to speed on some of the technical subject matter. Once they arrived, I guess they began, we started giving them at least an outline of some of the projects that they could work on, and so they eventually were able to select the project that they worked on. So I'll go through the students, and you can see their project at the bottom. Frank Armstead is a senior in chemical engineering from Tuskegee University. Frank worked with Dr. Adhikari on biomass gasification using southern pine, and also looking at tar analysis from the syngases produced. And you'll hopefully see as we go through these, a lot of these projects really relate pretty closely to some of the experience that we had with our industry collaborator, Rentec. So Frank is from Tuskegee. Will Chaplow is a student here at Auburn in biosystems engineering. He worked under Dr. Mobing too in Forestry and Wildlife Sciences here. Will worked on biomass fractionation analysis and fuel production from woody biomass in particular. Kelvin Smith is a chemical engineering student from Auburn. Let's see, he worked under Brian Vai in Forestry and Wildlife Sciences, and his work was on rapid characterization of biomass feedstocks using near-infrared and other spectroscopic methods. Kelvin, every one of these kids is really interesting. They're all really sharp kids. I guess I'll point out Kelvin. Kelvin's claim to fame. He's at least in line in the small group that's been selected for the college version of Jeopardy on TV. So he's all excited about that. We're not sure if we're actually going to see him on TV, but he's pretty fired up about being on Jeopardy. Jacob Watkins is another senior here in Biosystems Engineering at Auburn. Jacob worked under Dr. Duran Tessina here in our department on really flowability of woody biomass after it's been ground up, and that's a direct issue that Rentec has been dealing with. So Jacob has worked on some of the flowability issues with biomass. And then Liana Whoopty, I think, is our last student. Liana's also a senior in Biosystems Engineering. She worked with Dr. Chris Roberts in chemical engineering here at Auburn on supercritical phase Fischer-Tropsch and some of the catalysis and different things that were related to that. So she really worked more on the chemical engineering side. Liana, all these are really sharp students, like I said, but Liana is also a varsity softball player on Auburn's softball team. So that gives you a sense of the students, and then also a sense of the research projects that they worked on. And again, all of these had some connection to Rentec and some of the challenges that Rentec has been facing in their thermochemical processes. So in addition to the research work that they did here on campus with the different faculty advisors, they spent several weeks doing that. But in addition to that, there were we tried to develop several. I've termed them as enriching experiences through the summer. And so, just an example of those, through the summer, they spent a day and a half with us. Our high tonnage forest logistics project that we have underway here at Auburn, they spent a day and a half in the woods with us, and also, really more importantly, our industry advisory group that we had for that project, they spent half a day in the room with that industry advisory group going through the results from the project as well as the industry feedback on it. So they got a real good introduction to some of the issues in the industry, companies like Shell and I'm trying to think who else. Coscata was there, Genera was there, along with some of the forest biomass providers. So they got a real good understanding of industry issues and industry feedback on the new harvesting systems that we're developing. We spent a day at DOE's National Carbon Capture Center, which is here in Alabama. The Southern Company operates that for DOE. It's a large gasification facility, gasification carbon capture facility. So they got a really good view of those thermochemical processes at a pretty large scale and some of the carbon capture work that's going on. They spent a couple of days, there's an NSF-sponsored thermochemical conversion workshop here at Auburn that they participated in pretty heavily, and again, got to hear thermochemical leaders from around the country present research results. They ended up spending 2 weeks in Denver, Colorado with Rentec, but while they were there, they spent better part of a day with Community Power Corporation and looked at their gasification systems that they produce, and then they spent time at the National Renewable Energy Lab, also there outside of Denver. So just a few kind of snapshots of their experiences. This is at our industry collaborator, Corley Land Services, down in Central Alabama for our high tonnage project field day and industry advisory committee meeting. So these are the students there, and then this shows you some of the equipment that we observed in the field working that day. And then also the advisory group, again, they participated in that meeting with biofuel producers as well as biomass producers. And so we've got a really good, I think they got a really good exposure to industry issues and challenges that we all face. Our National Carbon Capture Center visit, this is Liana showing her ID badge there, but and shows the facility in the background. Again, this is a Southern Company operated facility for DOE, but it's their National Carbon Capture Research Facility. I'm trying to think of the reactor. It's a gasification system. It's a transport reactor that they primarily burn coal in, although they have processed biomass through it at various times. So we had a really good visit with all the operators of that facility. And then here in Auburn, they spent time with the NSF Thermochemical Conversion Workshop and had experience with our gasification systems. But at that Thermochemical Workshop, got to experience the professional presentations, poster presentations by other graduate students and researchers. And so I guess the photo there is Liana, one of our students, and that's her research team that she worked with in chemical engineering. Those are other PhD students in chemistry that she worked with through the summer on Fischer-Tropsch work. This is Community Power Corporation when the students were there, seeing the latest designs of gasifiers that CPC produces. And then they spent a 2-week really industry internship with our collaborator Rentec, essentially in Denver. That 2-week period was a mixture of training modules and plant experience. And so those training modules, you see a list of them there. They got a really good short course on plant safety, but then several other technical topics. The engineers from Rentec did a great job. They put together educational materials and went through those with the students on. You see various topics there: liquid sampling protocols, gasification chemistry, tar cleanup strategies, Fischer-Tropsch, biomass processing. So students really got a great exposure to the technical aspects of operating the plant, in a classroom setting, but then they walked right outside and were able to see the plant operational aspects too. The guys at Rentec just did a great job of working with the students. We couldn't have asked for anything better there. So they spent 2 weeks at Rentec, and this was really early in the summer. And after that, they were able to come back to Auburn and complete their research projects through the rest of the summer. And again, many of those research projects were either directly or pretty closely tied to some of the challenges that they saw at Rentec. So a couple of views at Rentec: students in the lab, students on top of the Fischer-Tropsch reactor, and then these are students out in front of the large tower in the background is their Fischer-Tropsch reactor. The gasifiers are really on the left, kind of out of the picture there, but these are the seat fellows, and I think that's one of the Rentec engineers that they're with on the far left-hand side of the photograph. Students really had a great experience at Rentec. The engineers at Rentec spent a lot of time with them. They learned a lot there. But then at the same time, in their off hours, they were able to take part in other enriching activities. They visited Rocky Mountain National Park, spent some time up in the mountains on the weekends, got to do whitewater rafting while they were there, had a great time as a group doing that. Students also in the evenings would participate in things around Denver, baseball games, bowling. It looks like they got a chance to visit the Coors Brewery. So they really, I guess I was impressed. Sushil worked pretty closely with them, and Christian Broadback spent a lot of time with them. Christian's one of our research engineers, spent a lot of time with them out there. But one of the things I was impressed with, the students really came together as a team throughout this. It was really impressive how they were able to kind of work together and haven't had issues that students would sometimes have. They just been a great team that came together. So at the end of the summer, their research results, they were all able to pull them together and do poster presentations here at Auburn. We invited faculty from Auburn and Tuskegee to attend those presentations. There were several faculty from both institutions that were there. So the students, each of the students gave a poster presentation on the research, and I'll probably repeat it here in a minute, but they're lined up to do poster presentations at the Frontiers on Biorefining conference here shortly. So they did a great job on all those projects. Some of them got farther than others, but all of them did a really good job working with their faculty advisors. Just had really great results from those. So that pretty well completed the summer, and then this fall, our activities this fall consist of this team project on deploying the industry here in the South, and then followed by some additional enriching activities. And those enriching activities I just mentioned would be they're going to attend the Frontiers in Biorefining conference and present posters there. We hope we can get them to the University of Tennessee and visit the Biomass Innovation Park and hopefully visit Oak Ridge National Lab while they're there too. So those are the enriching activities. This team project idea, what we would like to do, again, is work with Rentech and let the students work on at least, if nothing else, a hypothetical, but maybe more than a hypothetical location of a plant here in the South. And so we're tasking the students with saying, hey, Rentech is considering possible sites here in the Southeast for commercial plants. One of those might be in North Alabama near Hanceville. They're thinking about building a 40 million gallon per year plant there. We're tasking the students with doing as much of a feasibility study for that plant as they could. And so what we're asking them to do is essentially develop that feasibility report, something that might go back to Rentech, but you can see some of the deliverables there: biomass availability, access to transportation networks, the utilities that are available, waste disposal, water treatment issues, preliminary cost estimation, job creation, all the things that would go into the decision matrix that would let you locate that plant there. So we're asking the students to work as a team to come up with that, just to give them the experience of what are the issues surrounding deployment of the industry here in the South. So they're working on that right now. I guess we'll come back in a minute, but it's a little more challenging than once the fall semester starts. They've got classes going on. It's a little more challenging to keep them focused on it. But anyway, that's our goal for this fall. So I guess now we kind of transition to thinking ahead. What do we want to do in 2013 and beyond? So one of the things that Sushil and I both, our hope is that we can bring students from other institutions into our group of students, not just Auburn and Tuskegee, certainly. We would hope to broaden that across the South. Certainly our IBSS partners, Tennessee, NC State, Georgia, and some of the other 1890 institutions, Fort Valley State, perhaps, Alabama A&M. So we really want to broaden our our reach of institutions that we can attract students from. I think Sushil's thinking that maybe there's some more professional development activities that we could include throughout the summer, in addition to just some training activities on biomass and biofuels. Maybe help the students learn a few more things about intellectual property or technical writing to go along with that. Is that right? So to kind of sort of summarize where we are, I think the things that we've learned today, and it's really more what Sushil has learned. Sushil spent most of the time with them, but the summer experience, particularly the research part of that, has been manageable, very manageable. That's worked really well. The internship at Rentech worked really well. They just did a marvelous job of hosting us. So the summer term has really turned out to be very manageable. The fall semester is a little bit probably more challenging to manage, and then to get those final deliverables out of them, it's going to be harder. students have more distractions in the fall, other courses in football and all the things that go with fall semester. So the fall it's going to be interesting to see how we come out in the fall, I guess. One of the things that we know it's going to be more challenging when we have students from a broader geographic range. It's been great here with the students in Tuskegee and Auburn. They're real close together. We're 20 miles apart or so. So this fall, it hadn't been too bad to meet with them. But as we broaden that out to students from Tennessee or NC State, it's going to be tougher to deal with that in a fall semester setting. And I think Sushil's comment there, maybe if we can do everything we want to do in one summer, it probably would be a better situation. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Yeah. And then financially, that would let us stretch our dollars a little bit farther if we only have to worry about a summer term. Sushil helped collect a few comments from the students. Students, I know we've talked to them numerous times. The students are just really, really positive about their experience. They really appreciate the hands-on activities to help them from a career standpoint. They've kind of learned where their career could take them now. It was very fun. They talk about being fun, and the salary was really good. They're really complimentary about the fellowship financially. That was a really attractive offer to them, and then they just really had positive things to say about their experiences. So from a student standpoint, I think the students, all of them, really, really emphasized that it was a good experience for them. So I guess at this point, just to summarize, at least our 2012 program, and I got to give credit all this to Sushil. I'm the one that's talked all the time, but Sushil's really done all the work on this. One thing, we were able to attract some really high-quality students. Academically, they were really sharp students. We were really fortunate there. The summer program was very well received by the students, both on the financial side of it, but they really appreciated they felt like their research experience and their experience at Rentec was really rewarding for them. They were able to complete research projects, and those will be presented at a professional meeting coming up. So they're able to do poster presentations, and they've gotten their feet wet from a research standpoint, and actually several of them, we're hoping internally we can attract them into graduate school. The enriching experiences were well received. The students, this group of students at least, just was a perfect group. They just came together very well, worked together as a team very well, and those enriching experiences they enjoyed them very much. I've mentioned several times, Rentec is just a great partner in all this. I don't know if we could ask for anybody better. They spent a lot of time on the students. Their engineers devoted a lot of time to it, which obviously was an expense to Rentec, but they were just a great partner in hosting our students out there. And then I know Sushil, I'm speaking for Sushil, both of us are looking forward to 2013. It's been a great experience so far, and so we're looking forward to another batch of students. And I think we've got one final slide. We definitely need to acknowledge several people. First of all, Sushil, Adhikari, I want to make sure Sushil really did most of the legwork and taking care of the students and making arrangements for them here and all the financial and HR aspects of that. Christian Broadbeck is a research engineer here in our group. Christian spent a lot of time with him in Colorado, but also spent time with one of the students working on gasification here. Deron Facina was one of the faculty mentors to Jacob. Chris Roberts, you all know, as part of our group. Chris now the dean here in the College of Engineering, but Chris worked with Liana in the Fisher-Tropsch area. Brian Vai worked with Kelvin on the spectroscopy methods. Mobing 2 worked with Will on the fractionation, and anyway, all of the faculty members just did a great job of mentoring the students working with them. And then finally, Rentec and particularly Phil Weathers, we need to acknowledge their contribution for allowing our students to come out there and stay with them. They just did a great job of hosting us and provided just a top-notch educational experience for the students. So, so with that, I think we're pretty well done. I don't know if we have any questions at this point, but Sushil and I are happy to take any. Or I noticed nobody typed any questions, but if anybody has any at this point, we'd be happy to entertain questions or discussion on how we move forward. If anybody has suggestions on advancing into 2013, and particularly how to attract students from those other universities, that'd be great to hear. So, okay, so one question, will we follow students through college and early business careers? I don't know that we've talked about it too much, but I think that's certainly a great suggestion, and we should. The biosystems engineering students, well, and even the chemical engineering students, each of us, as part of our ABET accreditation process, we have these fairly comprehensive assessment programs, and I know here in our department we follow our graduates. The first 5 years or so, we usually survey our graduates, and so we try to keep up with them as close as we can. So I know in our case, the biosystems engineering students, we will. I'm assuming the chemical engineering students would be the same thing at their respective programs. So that's a great suggestion for us to do that, though. So questions that have desire to continue in the bioenergy area, I think the answer to that is pretty well yes. Sushil, you know better.
Yeah. Can I turn it on?
Oh, yeah, you can just talk.
Talking to a couple of students, Frank from Tuskegee, he's really interested in getting a master's. He's going to have a, undergraduate in chemical engineering, but he realized the importance of the, biomass products and handling and things like that. So he wanted to get a, master's degree in biosystem engineering. So he's talking to me and other faculty here. Liana Whoopty, she also wants to get a PhD. And then, Jacob, he has certainly expressed an interest for a master's program. So, except one student who is kind of a rising sophomore right now, and so he hasn't said anything about a master's and PhD, and I guess it's too early for him. But other than that, 4 out of 5 said that they wanted to, pursue higher study, whether it's a PhD or master's level. So
yeah. So I think it's pretty safe to say most of them are definitely interested in pursuing this further. Yeah. So let's see, what's our last question? Our next question. So the housing costs. So we gave them essentially, it worked out to about $1,500 for living expenses for the summer, and that was able to cover their travel. They were the plane tickets. Sushil, help me out. Well, plane tickets and so forth to Denver.
So what we did was, if you look into that early on, the cost number, the $5,000 was a stipend, and then $1,500 was to cover the housing and meal. That was just for when they were in Auburn. When we went to Denver, we had to stay in the hotel, and actually the IBSS project basically covered all their hotel cost and meal and everything. So we basically paid on top of what they got from that $5,000 plus $1,500.
But so those travel expenses to Denver we covered.
Yes.
Students didn't have to cover those.
Besides that, Tennessee.
But then their living expenses here during the summer, they came out ahead on that pretty much.
Oh yes.
The cost for them, the ones that stayed in this, like I said, it's an off-campus private dormitory that we worked out a deal for them to stay in that provided meals for them. It was just dirt cheap, and it's a nice place to stay too. It's right next to campus, so they can walk to our offices, and that was part of the living. They were able to pay for that out of their living expenses. So they really, the students came out ahead on it. So I think students from say NC State or Tennessee should be okay. And Sushil made the comment they really didn't even have to have a car. once they, in fact, one of the kids did not have a car. Kelvin's mom brought him here and dropped him off, and he spent the summer really without a car. So they were able to survive okay without that from a logistics standpoint, but financially they made it okay too. So I think somebody from NC State or Tennessee should be okay financially.
Yeah. The other thing to add, if I just break down all those costs in terms of hourly basis, it's almost $16.25 per hour. That's a pretty good pay. If you think about undergraduate, that's probably higher than what they would get once they graduate. And so.
Yeah. One question here locally that came up was how many students are we planning for next year? And I don't know, Sushil, I'll kind of let you think. You've done some of the cost numbers on it. So.
If you look into one of the slides that we had early on was, if we're just gonna do it only in summer, probably we can have more students because you don't have to cover their financially for fall. And so that was the question that we have been discussing here. Do we want it to do more on just a few students, or do we want it to impact on more? And that's kind of the discussion that a decision that we have to make on.
Yeah. Let's see, advertisement for next summer. Here, this past year, we advertised it to Tuskegee, Alabama, A&M, and Auburn. We sent that advertisement to the faculty that were involved in the IBSS program. Does that sound right, Sushil?
Yes.
And so I would assume we would do something similar to that next year to distribute that to the IBSS investigators at various universities and let them publicize it around. But if it's posted in the Forest Biomaterials Department at NC State or wherever at Tennessee, let them post it and let students apply that way. Or if the faculty at those various institutions have students that they really are encouraging to do it, I guess that's one of the things that we did here too. We asked faculty, hey, who would you recommend? Who would you essentially nominate for this? And that helped some too this time. So I think that would be our plan coming up next year. On the student numbers question, anybody have feedback on, 5, on one hand seems like a small number, but when you got a small group like that, they can work together better as a team and they maybe get a higher quality experience. Anybody have feedback on the number of students? Is that a good number to work on, or should we really rearrange it and have more students? So I'm trying to think of who's on. I guess Nikki and Mo Bing and trying to think of the university campus people. Do you think you have access to students that you would recommend for this next year? Nikki, and that was your response. Since you guys don't have a teaching program, I can see that. What do we need to do to help advertise it better at UT's campus? Is there anything special we should do for you at UT? Yeah. Okay. Ross, you're suggesting maybe having 8 or 10 students wouldn't be too bad either, I guess, is what I'm reading there. Yeah. This is almost like being in class where we talk and the students never talk back.
I'll add in, since I'm in the room with the microphone, and this is Tom Gallagher, and I think the idea of, if you're going to expand it to different universities, that you cut it back to just the summer. I mean, there's advantages to the fall, but take that money and, instead of having 5 students for 6 months, the 2 semester things, go with 8 or 10 students for just the summer, and that's going to enhance of an NC State or a Georgia or a Tennessee student participating.
Yeah.
And I think, I think you can get it done. You got to shorten up your time frame, but I think you can get a lot done in that program and involve them, and they can afford to come down here and live for that amount of time and get back to their campus.
Yeah, yeah. And there still could be 1 or 2, like they're going to this meeting.
Yeah.
Where
we could do that on there.
Where St. Simon's.
Yes.
You could probably still get them to go to a meeting or something during the fall for one time, but get them.
You might be able to get the professor who sponsors them from their outside university might be able to sponsor them to get to that meeting.
Yeah.
And still present something or discuss their experience.
Yeah. Okay. What y'all have other suggestions as we go forward? I guess just one question in general. I know we don't have a big group listening to us, but does this look like? I mean, does what we've done look okay to the rest of our group here listening today? Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to think of questions to ask everybody. I'm running out of questions.